Welcome back to Upstart Epoxy, folks. Epoxy that you can trust. In this video, watch how we constructed this stunning and gorgeous dining room table using nothing but the best Upstart Epoxy Deep Pour and Upstart Epoxy's pigment. So first things first, you're always going to need a form, whether you like it or not. You can purchase forms online and they'll be made of HDPE or silicone. But I like to construct my own forms, especially when it's going to be an odd size or a size that you can't always purchase online. Usually those go up to about 4 feet, and this table was going to be 7 feet. So we went to the store, picked up the supplies. We went through 2 rolls of Tyvek tape. We got a sheet of plywood, and then we went ahead and got some extra so we can make the edges. Got it all taped up, got everything siliconed. We put it in there to check it out to make sure it was going to fit and how it was going to look. And we were going to do a different, unique style on this one. We're going to have 2 cut-off edges on each corner. So we went ahead and we got ready. We put some weights on it to hold those big old slabs down to the form, folks. Then we pulled out the best in the business, some deep pour epoxy from Upstart Epoxy. We got it all poured. And we poured some more. At the end of this, I think we used up to about 12 to 14 gallons of deep pour, folks, for this pour. Yeah, it was a lot of epoxy, it was a lot of pouring, and it was a lot of mixing. But anytime you take on a project this size, you're going to have to do that. So it's really fun to do all this and pour all this, but the important thing is to remember, folks, that this is going to be a huge pour in terms of volume. So yes, we're going to pour it up to 2 inches, but you always want to make sure that when you're pouring at this level of volume, that you have some fans or something to cool down the epoxy as it's curing in your room. For this pour, we used a couple of fans on each side just to keep it cool. It was going to be 2 inches, but spread out through a huge platform. So we wanted to make sure that everything stayed nice and cool. Then we took some silver white pigment from Upstart Epoxy, which is in the mica powder pigment pack. If you haven't picked one up today, be sure and do that. And we mixed it all up. And look at that cool, beautiful pearl color it gives off. Then we made sure all the final things were ready before we poured in the epoxy. And it was go time. Just look how beautiful that epoxy comes out. Look how beautiful it looks. That sheen, that metallic, the pearl that this pigment color gives off is just really amazing. This was going to be a dining room table, so we wanted to make sure that it looked its best, folks. We got it all poured up, and we let this one sit in the mold for about, I'd say, a week and a half, just to make sure everything was good, everything was solidified, and that it was going to be a big, solid piece with structure throughout the whole table. And in the end, it turned out perfectly. And it was nice to leave it in there. We loved the way it looked when it came out. Then it was time to get it and take it to a local planer that we have here in Albuquerque. And we loaded it up so that they could flatten both sides of it and leave this table looking completely flat. That way, when we got it back, all we'd have to do is sand it down. So here we are loading it up. We have it ready for the road trip. We took it in, and when we got it back, look how beautiful they did. This was a really good job done by this local company that's in Albuquerque, and they did just a spectacular job on this. Then it was time for sanding. This was what took a long time. This took us about 3.5 hours, folks. We started with 80 grit and got all the little chips and imperfections out that were left over from the planer. So that takes a while because sometimes the epoxy gets little divots and chips in there, and you got to just keep on going over it and going over it and going over it until they come out. But in the end, look how smooth this was already starting to shape up to be, and look how good it was already starting to look. So then we hit it with the wood. We went all the way up to 120. And the epoxy, we went up to 600. Then the customer, they wanted a beveled edge on there. So we threw on a chamfer bit and we got those corners all routed out. Got that nice, clean chamfer bevel on there. And it was really starting to take shape, folks. A beveled edge always, in my opinion, kind of gives it a crisp and clean and finished look. Now, you can leave it regular. You don't have to put a beveled edge, but I just always like the completed look that it gives. And it is a really classy and elegant look that it gives to whatever you're working on, whether it's a charcuterie board, a dining room table, or whatever you're going to apply that beveled edge to. So, food for thought. If you want to finish your piece and give it that final crisp look, think about doing a beveled edge on it. Then we took it inside and we hit it with some Rubio Monocoat. Rubio Monocoat is really, really awesome for tables like this. It locks into the wood and it really gives it a one-step process. It's actually, you mix up part A and part B, the activator, you put it on the table, you give it 5 minutes, and then you wipe it off. You wipe it really good, or you can also buff it off, and it locks in. You give it 5 days to cure, and it really locks into the wood. And look at how it really exposes those wood grains, folks. And it doesn't hurt the epoxy one bit. It doesn't affect the color or nothing. So once we had this all cleaned up, we made sure and we wiped it with a lint-free rag to get any excess that was on there off and to give it a nice luster and appeal to this table. It was a satin finish. It wasn't nothing like a flood coat or a glossy coat or even matte. It had a touch of satin to it. And man, this piece just came out super, super duper cool, folks. So I would advise you, if you haven't tried a table, even a small coffee table, try one. Try something a little bit big or out of the ordinary. And in the end, you'll be super happy that you did. As always, comment and subscribe, folks. This is Steve with Upstart, and we'll see you next time.